Hello, everybody. Very happy to be live with our final panel of the day, which is poison themed. And we're going to start off with an introduction to everybody and their books. Miranda, can we start with you just because you're at the top next to me?
Yeah, sure. So I write psychological thrillers. I have just written number 14 and number 15 is coming out later this summer. And the book that's got the most amount of poison in it is this one, Fatal Flowers, set in a garden centre, and a few unpleasant deaths, etc.
Catherine, next.
Hello, I'm Catherine Cooper. It's my first time on one of these. So this was my debut, The Chalet, which was a Sunday Times bestseller. It was out in 2020. It's also the one with the poison in. This is The Chateau, which was out last. I'm just trying to get it so the light doesn't reflect. Which was out at the end of last year. They're both largely set in France, where I live. And I have The Cruise coming out later this year, which is mainly set in the Caribbean.
Lovely. And TG?
Yes, I write the Beaujolais Society series of books set in Victorian London about a group of detectives who use the knowledge and skills from their ordinary jobs to then solve crimes that society has been assigned to. Starting the first one in the series was Case of the Cruise Client, but the books that I've used poisons in was the second one in the series, the Case of Legend Washington and the Case of the Toxic Tonic. Yeah.
Lovely. So let's start off with the poison themed and about which poisons have you used and why do you think they're such a good tool in a murder book? Do you want to start us off, Miranda?
Okay, so I used ricin. Well, actually, I named my characters, the three key characters, I hope I'm not giving away too much here, are called Bella, after Belladonna, Ollie after Oleander, and I have just Lily. And so I just thought because it was set in the garden centre and there's sort of the plant theme behind it, although the poison that killed was ricin, and I suppose a lot of authors use ricin because it's quite convenient. It actually does the trick.
It's quite easy to make as well, isn't it? I think it's not easy to make. You're very likely to kill yourself if you do try. But it's meant to be easy to make.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to choose poisons that could be relatively easily found in plants, but I did have some of my characters. I did have a chemist and sort of a horticulturalist who knew what they were doing, and lots of research from my behalf, obviously.
Catherine?
I used mushrooms because I wanted some. So I'm trying to stop things going around. I wanted something that was easily found. Yeah, that you didn't have to be a pharmacist or anything to access. But also something. This is probably maybe a little bit spoilery. But also something where the death could look accidental. Obviously, it's very easy to accidentally poison yourself with mushrooms or poison someone else with mushrooms. So that was a big part for that as well.
Go on, T.
Yeah, so I've used the classic arsenic in Case of Legend Washington. That's mainly because, again, the wide variability of that in the era. And people used to get that and pile it on bread and butter to then put it down for the vats. And then I used monk's hood in the toxic tonic. But I'm very much, in terms of which poisons I use, I'm very much determined by how they're then actually going to be able to detect it back in the 1890s. So once I decide which poison I'm going to use in terms of the practicality of the murder, I then have to then look at, see any case studies or scientific methods they would use to actually detect that poison. So sometimes I can't use a poison because they wouldn't have had any necessary scientific way to actually detect it.
Fair enough. I suppose it does depend, doesn't it? Like you've got to think about that, whether your forensics in your book would detect what you want to use. We've got some hellos from Laura Hamilton, Caroline Mills, or is it Carolyn Mills? Sorry, I've probably done the unforgivable thing of pronouncing that wrong. And I'm a Caroline, so I should know better. And Sam, who said she was distracted by a murder she wrote event. While we're on that, what are your favourite crime series?
Books or sort?
To watch. Let's go with to watch.
I quite like Midsummer Murders.
I like Midsummer Murders, yeah.
Yeah, and Jonathan Creek. I absolutely love Jonathan Creek. I know they're quite old now, but I just love the whole locked room sort of scenario.
I'm watching The Staircase, and I have to say I'm loving it. Sort of more the psych thrillers.
Yeah, is that the film Staircase?
No, it's on. Well, I'm watching it on now because I don't have Sky, but
okay.
It's about it's set in the States and about
it's a true life one, isn't it?
I think it is based on true life. Yeah.
Because I watched a black and white film called The Staircase, that was based on a lesser known sort of crime write from the 1930s. That was really good. So I thought that might have been that.
No, it's not. Current.
Okay.
There was a true life documentary about it as well, though, I think.
Yeah, I think the recent one, isn't it? I think there was one a while back, and they've remade it. I think I haven't seen it, but I don't have Sky or now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I've just got BT TV.
What do you like to watch then, Catherine?
I'm enjoying Stranger Things at the moment, but that's not crime, obviously. I like Line of Duty. I like Agatha Christie films, and I quite often like the sort of slightly trashy true crime ones on Netflix. Also, Harlan Coben, those are good. Lots really.
So the couple of comments we've got coming up have been people sort of saying that they've liked different people's books on here. So we've got Carolyn says she's a big fan of TG's. Laura says that she's really loved both of your books, Catherine.
Oh, that's kind.
And is looking forward to learning more about yours, Miranda. So let's go into what you're working on at the moment. So what you're writing currently. Do you want to
go?
Yeah, go on.
Okay. All right, and you're gonna hear it here first, because no one knows about this yet. I am just finishing off a book called The Insomniac, and it's going to come out in August, and we've just signed off the front cover. And I have to say, I've really, really, really enjoyed writing it, quite possibly because Sleep and I haven't had the best of relationships over the years. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And then I've just 2 weeks ago, this one, The Second Wife, came out. So that's had a lot of reviews. So yeah, it's, all of mine are very much sort of domestic suspense, psychological thrillers, mainly set sort of around Sussex, where I live.
What's The Insomniac about?
It's about I have to be really careful because I haven't prepared myself to talk about this. It's set in a wellness clinic on the South Coast, and it's about somebody who attends an insomnia program to cure her sleeplessness, and it's what happens to her there. It's been fun.
That sounds really good.
Yeah.
Hope so. Really so yeah, it's literally just kind of finishing that off, and hopefully that'll go to, well, my editor will have to sign that off, and then it'll go to proofs and all the rest of it. So the fun stage, nearing the end.
And Catherine, what are you working on?
I'm just finishing off the cruise, literally just doing my kind of final edits, which were meant to be in the end of last week, but they're going to be in on Monday. So the cruise is it's largely set in the Caribbean. It's the reason I wrote it was I was a bit fascinated by it's not set in times of COVID, but during COVID there were lots of cruise ships moored off the south coast. I thought it was interesting that apparently they don't just leave them there; they have to have a skeleton crew of about 100 people. And these things are enormous. They have about 6,000 passengers and 2,000 crew normally. So I figured it would make a good setting if you've got a big spooky cruise ship with hardly any people on.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it continues my sort of luxury travel theme that the other two have. And also, I find it interesting that there are about, I've actually got quite into doing all my cruise ship research this year, but so about almost 30 million people typically take cruises a year, and about 80 a year go missing while they're at sea, and often they don't know what happens to them. So I thought that was really interesting. So it's those two things together really that made me choose that.
Very interesting. Go on, TG.
So, sorry.
No, it's fine. Carry on.
Oh, yeah. So I'm working on the sixth one in my main Boat Society series. So this one's set just after the events of the fifth one, was the case of the Maxwell murder. I can't really give too much away because there's a lot that's happened in the first 5 books, which is well known to this book. But because each of my books have sort of a theme, so like the first one was a bit more sort of about mental health, second one was about shopping. This one is very much sort of going into the underground world of bare knuckle boxing, and also sort of how that transition to the modern world boxing as well, how all those wars sort of come in, so that conflict between the two. So this one's very much sort of quite a bit of a departure from sort of the normal sort of middle class type settings I've had before in the books.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what's the most interesting, I always like asking this of authors, what's the most interesting kind of research rabbit hole you've been down, or you've been researching for your books? You've touched on it a little bit, Catherine, with your cruise kind of research.
Yeah, I did enjoy that. I've watched quite a lot of YouTube videos about crew and looked at amazing suites and things like that. And I've read a couple of sort of cruise crew memoirs. But yeah, I mean, all sorts, just like random things like the Mariana Trench. I wanted to see how deep the sea was. So the Mariana Trench, it's so deep. If you put Everest in it, it would still have something like 2,000 meters above it. It's incredible. But yeah, all sorts. I'm very easily distracted. So I spend a lot of time researching things. But going back to the poison, I found it quite interesting in the chalet to look at the different ways that different mushrooms work. Because the one I used, I can't even remember which one it was now. I think it's Death Cat. You eat it, you're quite ill, and then you seem like you're getting better. So unless you get medical attention, then you deteriorate and then you die, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
And it was quite useful plot-wise as well. But,
It is, because I suppose you could have your victim like looking like they're making a recovery. Yes,
exactly. So he didn't go to the doctor or anything when he should have done, and so the murderer was able to kill him, which was great. But not for him, obviously, but for the murderer.
Yeah.
Go on, TG. What about you? What's most interesting research rabbit hole you've been down?
I think, it's just poisons in general. I think because a couple of my short stories, because my short stories of all don't have a murder, I had to find a couple of poisons which could just induce violent vomiting but wouldn't necessarily fatal. So I used like Lily of the Valley one, and I also used another one that was sort of more just was potentially used because it does induce vomiting. So just looking at different effects, different sort of origins of where these poisons are from, but again linking it into sort of the forensics and the criminal cases that were around then as well in terms of detecting the poisons. But I think when you do start researching poisons, you then start getting paranoid that you're going to accidentally poison yourself with something that's a quite mundane, everyday sort of things. So it's quite interesting. Some things that you think would be quite harmless can actually be quite poisonous. So it's just spent hours just reading about poisons and the effects, really.
Sure, I always think that's really fascinating. It's like you can get cyanide from apple pips.
Yeah.
I think you have to eat a lot though for it to be poisonous. Yeah. You literally thousands or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
But equally, like caffeine is poisonous in quite actual small quantities, isn't it? If it's pure, as alcohol, obviously, as well.
Yeah, like nicotine as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
interested to hear that you can make ricin. I didn't know that was the case. I have a vague idea. I looked at ricin for the chalet and I decided it wouldn't work for me for some reason. I can't remember why now.
I'm sure it is makeable. I'm sure I've read about it somewhere, but I think it's one of those things like making explosives. You're as likely to kind of kill yourself.
Yeah,
you have to know what you're doing, I think.
Yeah. I think it's easy, and also autopsy-wise, I think it's easily traceable as well, isn't it? I mean, obviously not in the Victorian era, but I wouldn't think. But yeah, I think maybe that was the other thing.
I think I can't exactly remember because it's a while back, but I had more scope because I had someone working in a laboratory and it was all sort of set up. Yeah, it was a little bit easier. It wasn't, just someone random wanting to poison their husband or their neighbor or something.
Locking it up in a French Alps might have been more difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's the most interesting research thing you've been down recently, Miranda?
I probably don't do. I certainly won't do as much research as obviously you have to do, TJ, because it's obviously, mine is current day, and so it's more trying to come up with ways of killing people, and I'm always just so worried that someone's going to look at my search history, and it's like I'm having like these Zoom sessions with my editor, and if anybody's overhearing us, it's just going to be so dodgy. So it's mainly sort of all online stuff. I mean, the most recent one, I needed to do quite a bit of research about hypnosis. So I signed up to a site where you can download hypnosis scripts, and there were some really, really interesting ones on there. And conditions that I certainly had no idea that they existed, and why you need to be hypnotized. So that was a lot of fun. That's the recent one. It just depends, every book is different. So for The Second Wife, I really didn't. Oh no, I did have to do some because Tamsin, one of the main characters, she is into cacti. So she has a lovely big glass house with succulents, and so I needed to make sure that I was choosing succulents that she could get hold of in the UK, and that her greenhouse was sufficiently large. And then I had another one where someone was driving a car, and I'm going to be giving away too much, so I'm not going to tell you, but anyway, bits and pieces.
It was like when we interview authors and they're just like, no, I can't tell you that. It's going to give away too much. We never want you to give away a spoiler, so we're always happy if you say that you can't tell us something. We will understand. I'm really curious about yours with your luxury travel, Catherine. Did you just pick them with luxury travel things so you could go and experience?
No, I'm lucky enough to, in my other life, I'm a travel journalist, or at least I did a lot more before COVID, but it's beginning to start again. I'm also a skier. So the chalet was because at the time, the same winter that came out, there was also Shiver and One by One and the sanatorium. So there were quite a lot of snowy thrillers that winter. But before then, I'd never really seen a thriller set in a ski resort, and I thought it would be the ideal place. And the chalet itself was kind of an amalgam of lots of different luxury hotels that I've been lucky enough to visit. The chateau, actually, there's a bit less luxury in it, and that's more based around the sort of expat life, which obviously living in France, I sort of know a bit about. We've been here 12 years, but there are some, again, there's one very rundown chateau in that, and there's another very smart one. Again, that's kind of based on ones that I've visited over the years on my travels. The cruise, I'm not really a big cruiser. I've been on a couple of press trips. One of them was the ill-fated Costa Concordia, which at the time was the biggest in Europe when I went on it, not when it sank. But since then, they've literally doubled in size, or at least doubled in capacity. So I just find it, I enjoy luxury hotels, to be honest. Yes, when I'm lucky enough to go to them, I enjoy writing about them. And also I enjoy writing the descriptions of food. There's often quite a lot of nice food in the books, and it's just quite fun to write. I'm not very good at writing gritty. I think I'm better at champagne and oysters than, I don't know, whatever the opposite of that is.
So your next one can't be called The Caravan then, if you've had the chalet, the chateau,
no. Yeah, I know. No, the next one actually, I've only just started it, and then I had to get back onto my edits. But the next one after that, I'm planning to set in the in an overwater villa in the Maldives. I've never been to the Maldives, so if I can swing a trip out of it, it'd be great. But I'll just be going on websites and looking at them for now. To be honest, not sure I've sort of really managed to swing them as research trips, really.
Oh.
I think people have tried.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, apparently, in the UK you can claim them against tax, but in France I'm on a sort of different tax regime where you don't get to claim expenses; you just pay a lower tax. I don't know. So yeah, I think you can claim it against tax, and I guess if you get lucky, you might get someone giving you a decent rate for a few pictures or something. We'll see. But no, really, it's just because I enjoy writing about that kind of thing. And I will also apparently, particularly, I think my editor likes me to do that because I think a lot of readers really enjoyed the luxury elements of the chalet. So I've kind of continued in that theme almost by accident, really. But yeah, as I say, it's fun to write, and I hope it's fun to read.
So what drew you two, so Miranda and TG, into writing about what you've chosen? So what drew you into psychological thrillers, Miranda?
Oh, I use it as therapy. So whenever if I'm worried about something, or something's preying on my mind, then that quite often becomes the catalyst to what I'm writing about. So The Second Wife was really about an inheritance and a will and a legacy, and we lost my dad at the beginning of the year. So the back end of last year, I was sort of around a lot of elderly people that thinking about end of life, and I was just sort of thinking about, you've got a melded family and a new wife, and what happens with a will, and fighting over a legacy. And then a previous one, just trying to think. So the arrangement was about a girl who was at uni, and she'd gone off, and tragically she died. And it was sort of at that stage, my daughter was away. She was actually in the States at uni. And so that was sort of all that big worry that your kid is far away from you. So it tends to be things that are happening in my life, like the new neighbor. We had a few issues with neighbors around here, nothing like in the new neighbor. And then The Visitors was set in a holiday cottage, which I ran a holiday cottage some years ago. So everything kind of draws on a tiny little bit of real life experience, or something that just captures my imagination in the news.
Nice, TG.
I first sort of wanted to write crime fiction because I loved Agatha Christie, and I just loved the idea of like a story being a puzzle and sort of putting that together and letting the reader sort of solve it. So that was initially what sparked my interest in crime writing originally. And I've always sort of quite liked to experiment and try different things. And I started this Boys Society because I sort of noticed that a lot of like crime books have like one detective or at least a couple, but they seem quite static. So with the Boys Society, you never know who's actually going to be called in to whichever case, because the Society's clerk, Miss Trent, will assign members based upon the skills that they've acquired for that particular case. So like in the first book, you had an architect, like an illusionist and a journalist, but in the second book, the architect wasn't there. You had a fashion journalist, like her secretary. So it sort of changes with each book. So it's really just sort of what I thought, to try different things out, but also with that sort of different themes that I explore in the books, there are sort of things that I've sort of found out about or find quite interesting, and like I say, capture imagination, or something just to challenge myself really more than anything else.
Good. Going away from your writing now, what have you read this year that was really stood out for you? What have been your top reads of the year so far?
Oh gosh, I'm really terrible at remembering ones. I really enjoyed Blood Sugar. I can't remember who it's by. I can probably find it. It's not out yet though. That was very good. Sorry, someone else can say.
I'm afraid that I basically only read psychological thrillers.
Yeah,
I have read a lot of Freida McFadden's recently, and The Housemaid is really good. Yeah. Oh, and I read your book. Sorry, I read The Chateau. I loved it.
Oh,
it's one of my May reads. Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. Oh yes, of course, you posted yesterday, didn't you?
I did, yes, because I try and just put. Well, I try and write a really little mini review for each book that I've read in the month. And this, I've just been a bit sort of overwhelmed with stuff over the last few days, so I didn't get around to doing my mini reviews. But yeah, that's on Instagram.
I've recently finished reading In the Dark Places, which was a horror, because I wanted to sort of read something else, wasn't sort of necessarily Victorian period based. I can't remember the author's name, but it's really good. It's quite a short book, but it's sort of a love letter bit to that sort of the horror movies at the 1970s. So this group of guys go to forest in the UK for a bachelor sort of weekend, and sort of these shadow creatures come out of the forest, and it's just what happens to them basically while they're in the forest. So that was really good. But obviously I've been reading lots of non-fiction books. I recently read The Art of Boxing by Billy Madison, I think it was. But it tells you, it's basically a training manual as well. So it tells you sort of how, it's originally published in the 1880s. So it tells you how to train, what the kind of diet to use. It also tells you sort of different positions in the boxing ring. But it covers both the bare knuckle sort of original sort of form boxing and also the new Queensberry rules. So it sort of covers that transition between the two. So that was really interesting.
I like some non-fiction books. One of my favourite books of the year so far has been Vaxxers. About like the It's been Vaxxers, which is like the story of the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Yes, I'd like to read that. Yeah, is it good?
It was really good. It's still in my top reads of the year.
Oh, okay. The vaccines, it's called.
And it's called the Vaxxers.
Vaxxers. Oh, yes. Yeah.
It was really good. I do dip occasionally into non-fiction, and it was a really good read. Sam has asked everyone how much your characters take over and invade your thoughts when you should be doing other things.
I'd say less characters and more plot, to be honest. I spend a lot of time thinking about plot when I should be doing other things, but not so much the characters, I think, maybe. I don't know.
I kind of wish the characters would take over, then the ironing might
but
it doesn't.
Yeah, I think it's very much like the plot, but also there is certain characters. I think you always, even when you're not writing or you're doing something else, and your writing's never very far away from your thoughts, because especially if you're in the middle of writing a particular story, especially if my stories have a lot of sort of cover the characters' lives beyond the society, so they all have problems and issues they've all got to deal with. So they're not very far from my thoughts really at all.
Fair enough. Have any of you ever acted out a scene as you've written it? What's a favourite book?
Scary.
Hopefully no, we're not writing about poisons.
No.
I think I don't act out the scene, but if I'm trying to figure it in my mind sort of how somebody might be sitting or how they might be holding their hand, or I might be sat there going like,
Oh yeah, I do stuff like that. Yeah. When you do this, What they might do with their hands, or how, like you say, how they might sit or move or something. Yeah. Oh yeah, to that degree. Yeah.
Do either of you dictate, or do you type?
No, just type.
I just type.
Yeah, I tried dictating, and I didn't really. I'm guessing
that does it come out with a lot of mistakes? I don't know. I think I find it quite difficult as well, to be honest. I think do you do that because you had RSI or something?
No, not at all. I just thought maybe I could go for, I mean, I do type really quickly, but I just thought perhaps it might go faster. But actually articulating the words I find quite difficult. I mean, it's all in my head and it comes out through my fingers really quickly.
Yeah.
But I thought maybe if I speak it might be easier, but actually I found it harder.
Yeah, I can't imagine I'd find that useful.
No, yeah.
Do you listen? I've heard that a lot of writers listen to theirs back instead of reading it back. I don't do that either, but I keep thinking I should, but I don't usually have time by the time I've read it enough times. So
No, yeah, I tend to read it back. Yeah, but I tend to read it back in my head, but I won't get anything to read out to me. No.
Yeah, no, but you can get your computer to do it. But I've never actually done that. Yeah.
Well,
so I think I probably wouldn't concentrate. I think my mind would wander, and I'd be Also, you can't, put a comma in where you need to if someone's reading it to you. I don't do that.
No, I've got six of them are coming out in audio books in the next couple of months, and so I'm going to have to listen. Well, I'm going to choose to listen to those. So it should be quite good fun. But it's
shamefully, I have mine are in audiobooks, and they're actually quite nicely done, because the books are told from several different points of view, and they use several actors for the various voices. But I've listened to parts of them, but to be honest, I've just read them so many times by the time they come out. I just there's only so much I can bear, really.
Yeah, I've only had audio.
TG?
No, but I am currently working on the audiobook of the first book. But what I'm doing with that is, it's interesting you say that you had other actors doing the different viewpoints in the story, because what I've chosen to do, because I've got so many characters in like a book and they have like scenes where they've all sat around a meeting room table, I've chosen to have different voices for each character. So I've got 2 actors who, one lady's doing all the female dialogue, another gentleman's doing all the male dialogue, and then I've got one Canadian actor who's doing the Dr. Weeks, and then I'm then going to do the narration in between.
Okay.
So it's quite interesting.
Is it more like a radio play then?
No, it'll be like an audio book, but it'll just, when it comes to their dialogue, it will have a different voice basically come in to do the dialogue. Because in the meeting message, you quite often could have up to like 13 characters all talking back and forth. So I just didn't think that it would work with just one person's voice. They've got different accents and everything. I just felt it would work better audibly if you had different voices. And the actors are really, really good to be able to sort of shift their voices and change their voice, so you can't actually tell it's the same actor doing it. But I'm currently working at the moment, so I'm hoping to get that one out by the end of the year. Hopefully.
The audition process is fun though, isn't it? I mean, I've really enjoyed that. And it's interesting how differently they all narrate the same section.
Yeah, I mean, I did try to get just one actor originally, was narrated to do the whole thing, but I did find it difficult to be able to get, because the way I auditioned it was that they would do the whole series, because there's 10 books planned for the series. So the idea being it would be the same person for each book, but I couldn't get somebody who could do all the accents. And when it came to doing a Canadian character, I couldn't find somebody who wasn't Canadian who could do a convincing Canadian accent. So in the end, I had to audition Canadian actors. So he's literally just been hired to do the one character. But I think it will make such a difference, especially when I do have characters when some of the short stories who are American. So to have, because it is quite slightly different, I think it's important to have that if you can. But yeah, it was really fun actually auditioning different people and getting their sort of samples and everything. Yeah.
Are you producing your audiobooks yourselves then? Is that how that works?
I am, yeah, because I publish through Kindle Limited, so I do everything myself. Yeah, so I'm doing it all myself. Yeah.
No, ours is with Dreamscape Publishing and through my publisher's incubator. So, and Dreamscape, they send over, they choose, they will send me over maybe 3 or sometimes between 3 and 5 narrators, and then I choose which ones I like the best. And if I don't like those, they will send over some more, which I mean that has.
Yeah, I sometimes get just a choice between a couple for certain characters. Yeah. But I think they've already whittled it down quite a lot by the time it gets to me.
Yeah.
You've been asked as well how many books each of you have written so far and how your process has changed from book 1 to now. Do you want to start us off again, Miranda?
Okay. So I've written, in total, I've written 17 books. 2 are one was a self-help going back a long time. One was a biography. And then one was women's fiction. And then I've written 14 psychological thrillers. And the process has changed quite a lot because my publishers are really proactive in helping on the plotting side of things. So I probably started the process as a pantster, which meant I didn't do any plotting at all and kind of guessed who was going to be the murderer, probably on the last chapter, to now where everything is really plotted out in extreme detail, so much so that I think, well, the book that I'm just finishing off, I think I wrote 10 or 12,000 words, essentially as a synopsis, or we call it as a beat sheet, before I even started writing the book, which means for me, the process goes really quickly because I know exactly the actions and everything that's going to happen. So in terms of a developmental edit, I don't really need a developmental edit. We've kind of done that up front, which is why I'm writing as many books as I'm writing. But I know that I wouldn't suit everybody. It suits me, and I really like that process.
What about you, Catherine?
I'm not sure how many books I've written. I've had 2 published. Two thrillers. Plus one, what they call new adult, which is basically, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but sort of porn for young people. That won a hockey competition years ago. It was a novella. But before those, I wrote so unpublished, probably about, I can't remember exactly, maybe 4 young adult and one women's fiction. So some of the young adult books have found their way into in a sort of condensed and very altered form, the Chateau and the Cruise. Elements of them, not obviously as they were. But as far as process goes, I'm very much a pantser, so I'm not very good at planning. I really wish I could do that, because I think it probably makes life easier in the long run. That said, I do quite enjoy the fact, I mean, the first draft is very much my favourite bit. I'm editing at the moment, and I just find it quite boring because I've read it so many times already, and I'm just going through spotting for commas and mistakes and things now. That's my point. So yeah, I guess the nice thing about not planning is while you're writing your first draft, without sounding too pretentious, your characters can surprise you. They can suddenly do things you're not expecting them to do, or they just turn out a little bit different to how you were thinking. I mean, I do start off with a vague shell, sort of a couple of settings, probably some characters, and an idea of where it's going to end up. But yeah, I don't think my process has changed very much. I do try and plan a bit more, but yeah, it doesn't really. Even if I do, it kind of usually ends up a bit different.
So I've published, say, 5 books in the main series and 5 short story collections for the British Society, but there is about 5 books I have written in the past which haven't seen the light of day and probably will never see the light of day for various reasons. When I first started writing the British Society series, I sort of did rely quite a lot on description. So in terms of my process, that's very much been sort of reined in quite a bit, and sort of managed to sort of, less is more. But when I first started writing in general, I did the whole technique of writing the first draft and then going back in and that's all right. And going back through the first draft, editing the whole draft, but I just couldn't do that. I just couldn't hold everything in my mind to be able to actually do that. So now what I do is I edit as I go, which might seem like it's quite time consuming, but I do find a lot easier to be able to sort of keep track of what's going on, different strands and different clues and everything by doing that. But I've always planned my plots, and so I would always sort of have a plot plan before I start writing the book. But that will inevitably always change, even when you've planned it up to that sort of quite detailed way. So it's always sort of evolving. But yeah, there's sort of 2 main things that I've sort of changed, is that I've minimised description, but also I've just gone to editing as I go along, which just finds so much better for my own personal writing process.
How do you find doing the other parts of the job? So we've talked a lot about your writing, but being an author sort of encompasses a lot more than that, doesn't it? How do you get on with doing the other parts of your sort of author job?
Okay, sort of doing this sort of thing, but I think probably I tend to get quite nervous when doing these sort of things, so I then tend to quite quickly. So it's sort of a few areas I could actually improve on, but generally, yeah, I think I do okay. There are bits like the same marketing and that sort of thing.
What about you, Catherine? How do you find doing all the other bits?
Well, because I debuted in COVID, I've never sort of done the thing like gone to festivals or anything yet. So I'm really excited about doing that. I've got my tickets booked for Harrogate this year. I'm really excited about it. As far as marketing and things go, I'm lucky in that my publisher does quite a lot, but also I'm very good at procrastinating. So I think I'm quite good at being on Instagram and Twitter because it's sometimes more interesting than getting on with what I'm actually supposed to be doing. I think the thing I've always found hardest, but this isn't particularly an author thing, it's maybe more of a France thing, is the whole sort of dealing with the tax and finance side. I just find really stressful because I'm never entirely sure how it's supposed to be working. In France, there are very different many ways to pay tax, and sort of setting up after the books are published as in a sort of different way. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't really feel that the rest of the stuff for me doesn't really take up much time at the moment, but I think that's partly because of when I started authoring, maybe.
What about you, Miranda?
Well, I'm slightly similar to Catherine because really, 2019 was my first year. So yeah, certainly for the psych thrillers. So I haven't done any of the festivals. I do, I do Instagram quite a bit, and I do try and do, link up with other authors perhaps and do some freebies and what have you. But also I'm lucky that my publishers do most of it. And in a way that's quite a relief, because before I became a full-time author, I was running my own business. And so then I was having to do everything. And if you've got to do everything, that means you're not obviously concentrating on the thing that you really want to do, which is the writing. So I actually feel now this massive sense of relief that I don't have to worry about everything. The bits of marketing that I do is really just because I choose to do it, that there's, I don't have to do it. So yeah, I feel really lucky.
So where are any of you've talked about Harrogate a little bit. What real kind of life author events are you all going to this year? You got any plans?
I'm going to Upper College summer party. I'm very excited about that as well, because I just haven't been. Well, it's partly living in France, but also just mainly COVID. I just haven't been to anything, so so that's it for me so far. Yeah.
TG, where are you going?
I'm off to the Books on the Beach Blackpool Independent Author event in August. It was 20th of August, I think it is.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's actually now sold out, which is really good. So in fact, it's 40 plus authors are going to be there. So I'll be there with a stand with my books and everything. So people come along and have a chat with me. And then I think next year I'm in Birmingham doing another author event, similar independent author event. But again, it's got 40 plus authors there. But they're sort of the main two that I'm doing at the moment.
Miranda, are you going anywhere?
No. I'm being thoroughly antisocial and anything. Yeah, I probably should, but I have sort of like a logistical issue, because I have a lot of pain with my legs, so I can't sit for any length of time. So I do try, I'm fine here because I'm sitting with my legs stretched straight out in front of me. But things like if I was doing a conference and was having to sit all day, I actually wouldn't manage that. So that's my excuse, because I'm antisocial.
I'm going to be at Harrogate, Catherine. So
yeah, that would nice to see you.
I'm going to be there on Saturday.
Okay, cool.
And it looks like Donna's going to the Blackpool one.
See you there then.
Yeah, she just said she'll see you there. Laura said about using Pigeonhole.
Oh yes, I've done Pigeonhole. Yeah.
Has anyone else heard of Pigeonhole?
No.
Do you want to tell us a bit about it, Catherine?
Yeah, I mean, my publisher sorted it out, but basically the way it works is your book is divided into. So I don't know exactly what Laura's question is, but shall I just say how it works?
Yeah.
Your book is divided into 10, they call them staves, but really they're, I don't know, sort of large chapters, I guess. And people sign up to read. It's almost like a sort of in-time, real-time book club. So each day for 10 days, Pigeonhole releases what they call a stave. Everyone reads online, and they can leave comments about what they think and what they think is going to happen. And the authors are, it's not obligatory, but the authors are very much encouraged to join in. So it's quite an interesting experience. Some people don't like it because some authors don't like it. I mean, because the readers are quite honest, as they should be, and sometimes they'll say, "Oh, well, I don't think that's very good," or "I don't think that's realistic," or but then when they do like it, it's really nice to chat with them. Well, it's nice to chat with them anyway. But the other thing I found really interesting was sometimes they would see connections or red herrings that I hadn't actually intended. It's kind of interesting to see how they think the story's going to go, or what they take out is from it. And then so I think that, I don't know how many readers sign up. I think it actually I have no idea how many, but I think the idea is that they're encouraged to leave reviews on Amazon. So it's a good way to get early reviews along with NetGalley. I don't know if Laura takes part or if she enjoys it.
I think Laura does take part. She's quite an avid reader. What's your craziest reviews you've ever had? I like how Miranda just went. I think you've got to start us off now with that.
I mean, I've had 1-star reviews because I'm an English writer, and obviously this person was American and didn't like how I wrote, because I write, with British writing. Yeah, I mean, we all have a few. It's kind of a rite of passage, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I find it quite funny, as a lot of my characters are very unlikable, and I find it quite funny when the reader seems to think that that wasn't deliberate on my part. So you kind of think, well, do they really think that I like these characters? But just on what you said about the American and English thing, there was one American reader who objected to the fact I'd used, obviously in the chalet, there's a lot of skiing, and objected to the word piste, which is a very normal word in English for ski. He said, it's just a ski trail. Why doesn't she just say that? Okay, sorry.
It's really hard, isn't it? Because actually the language is quite different, and we are very much, if you choose to write British English, then you're not going to change that.
Yeah, of course not, yeah.
Somebody once left a review on one of my books saying that they didn't like my Canadian character because he's quite uncouth and he speaks his mind and he can be quite rude. And they said that no Canadian person could ever be rude, therefore they didn't like the book.
I'm sure there must be some rude Canadian people.
There's like all Canadians are happy and lovely people, therefore, yeah, you couldn't be a real Canadian. I was like, okay. Didn't mind the fact that there was murder in the book or anything. That wasn't the problem. It was the fact that he swears, and yeah, it's not very nice.
I think one of the key things that people are really worried about, which is sort of understandable, is that as an author you don't kill any animals. I mean, they don't seem to mind that we're killing humans. And there's a whole website. My daughter found this. There was some sort of Reddit question. It's like, did Miranda Rijks kill, I can't remember which animal it was in one particular book. It's like, no, it's fine, you can read the book, she didn't kill the animal. So I went on there and said, actually, it's, I'm very happy killing adult humans, but I won't actually kill children or animals, so we're okay.
Yeah, I think there's like a does a dog die in it or something website.
Yes.
You can actually see it, animals die in it before you read it.
Yeah.
I have a dead rabbit in the chateau, and no one's complained about that. It just occurred to me, as far as I know.
Oh, you've done well. You've done very well.
Well, at the beginning of The Curious Client, there was a carriage crash. They had to sort of put the horse down, and nobody said anything about that. So.
Okay. Well, maybe they care more about the dogs than they do about the rabbits.
Yeah.
Is there any topics that you wouldn't write about?
I probably wouldn't write about. Well, I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot of topics that these days, if you're going to write about, you have to write about very carefully if you don't want to get trolled. So probably some of those topics, but I think in general, I wouldn't write about topics that I just really have no experience of, or no knowledge of how it is to be. I think that's why my characters, to a degree, they move in a sort of similar world to how I do, because I kind of think it's much more difficult to write something authentically or realistically or without offending somebody if it's a very different world to what you live in. I admire people that do it, but I'm not sure it's something I'd do.
Yeah. What about you? Is there anything you wouldn't write about, TG?
Probably mainly any sort of crimes that has got something to do with children, or sort of rape. I used to work for the witness service, which was part of victim support. So I used to work at the courts. So I would contact witnesses about coming to trial and about to give evidence. So I had quite sort of difficult conversations with people. So in that sense, I would avoid those subjects. Because like I say, I haven't had an experience in those things myself, and I wouldn't know how to pilot such a way that it would be respectful to people who have suffered that as well. So I think it's best if I'm not confident enough to be able to write about and represent it in the right way, then I would avoid it.
Enough, Miranda?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what TG and Catherine have both said. I try not stray too far beyond what I know. And I certainly would never have, I wouldn't write anything that was too graphic. I wouldn't include rape, and I wouldn't write about young kids coming to harm. And I won't kill a dog. Just in case anyone this is my promise to my readers, I will not kill a dog.
Laura has just said it is a dog. Does a dog die?
Yes.
And I'm glad she's confirmed it, because I said it so confidently and then was sure that I'd like made it up.
No, I've checked it out.
I don't think that would put me off reading something, actually, but it's good to know that there are things out there for people who might get put off by it, isn't it? Let's ask you another one of our favourite group questions. What are your memorable moments as an author?
So memorable moments of what?
What are your most memorable moments as an author?
Oh. I think getting my deal, really, because it happened very quickly and it was so out of the blue. It was the book was it was submitted by my agent. It was preempted 4 days later, so that was quite amazing. It's not what I expected at all. So I think I'd probably say that.
Oh, Miranda, what about you?
I've had quite a few, really, because it's been a fantastic 3 years. So obviously it's getting the Amazon bestseller tags. That's pretty memorable and exciting. And in terms of volume, the numbers of books that have been sold, that's also very nice. And actually, it's just the complete lifestyle change. I know that's not like a memorable moment per se, but being able to be a full-time writer has been, always a dream, and now I'm able to do that. So, yeah, it's cool.
Gigi?
I think probably one of the other things I said before on the panel is biggest moments for me was when I was accepted into the UK Crime Book Club's anthology Criminal Shorts, because as an independent writer, and just I entered my story into that, sort of obviously hoping that I would get in. So when I was actually accepted for that, I was absolutely over the moon, did a little dance and everything. So yeah, that's one of the most memorable moments recently for me.
For anyone who missed that, we put together an anthology in our group of short stories. It's got Mike Craven in, TG, all sorts of the group authors. There's quite a good collection of stories in there. And we donated all the profits to Red Kite Academy, which is a special school in Northampton, I want to say.
Northampton, yeah.
Yeah. And I think we gave them about $4,000 at the end of it. So it was all good. It went to build like a sensory garden. So it was worth it. It was good. It was a good thing.
It was really good, yeah.
Yeah, and it's quite a good way of discovering new authors, I think. So I found a lot of new authors from there. Yeah, it's a good thing. Would any of you write in another genre outside of crime?
I have attempted it. That's one of the books that will never see the light of day. Me and my friend at school, because I liked crime fiction, she liked fantasy fiction. So we each gave ourselves a top 10 things that should appear in each genre. So she gave me 10 things that should appear in a fantasy book, and I then tried to write a fantasy book, and it was terrible. So yeah, I'm firmly sticking with crime fiction, I think.
I think I could possibly do YA. I used to write YA, and I always quite enjoyed that. Although and I might one day have a go. I've got an idea for a bit of a police procedural, so I might one day have a go at that. But I think that probably involves a lot more research than I normally do, and it's probably a bit harder. But it's still crime anyway, isn't it? But yeah, and some time ago I wrote a women's fiction book, which I could maybe have a go at updating, but it's quite dated now. It's probably about 20 years old.
Yes, I mean, I have, like both of you, I do have several novels in different genres that will probably never see the light of day. And I have written a couple of romance books that I may or may not do something with, but obviously it would have to be under a different name. So I'm just thinking about it, but I just really love what I'm doing at the moment. So for right now, so long as I'm not bored, I'm sticking with what I'm doing.
How many books a year do you do, Miranda? Because I was surprised when you said you started in 2019.
So yeah, well, I do 3, although last year I did 4.
Oh right, wow.
And so when they signed me, I'd written 3 prior to being signed. So we had 4 that came out in quite quick succession.
Yeah.
So it'll probably be 3 this year.
Oh, that's quite a pace, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
But we sort of got this process. So I mean, it sounds like it's formulaic, and I hope it's not. I really hope it's not formulaic.
No, I'm sure it's not. I think no, yeah.
I write quite quick. Well, I do write very quickly.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, hopefully not. So hopefully the quality is still there.
I'm sure it is. And are they print or are they digital or are they both?
They're both. Yeah.
Gosh, okay, well.
Yeah. And in fact, the second wife is in hardback now. I'm still waiting for my hardback.
Yeah.
We have 4 minutes left. It's good to see you back, Gigi.
Thank you. I don't know what happened there.
These things happen when you go live. The worst is when it happens and you're the only one author with you.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to fill in magic. That's really bad. I just have to waffle for a bit.
Yeah.
We've got 3 minutes left. Finish us off with a reminder of yourselves and your books. Show off the covers and things. Get yourself a bit of extra advertising so people know what they're going to go away and buy, having heard you all for the last hour. Catherine, do you want to finish us off? Let's go in reverse order round.
Yeah, okay. So that's the chalet. That's set in the ski resort. It's that was the Sunday Times bestseller. I think it's still only £3 on Amazon, as far as I know. It's been reduced for quite some time. It's also available on Kindle. The chateau is sort of set within an expat community in France, and then I have the cruise coming out in November.
CG?
Okay, yeah. So I write, the Bow Street Society books, in Victoria, London, starting with the Case of the Curious Client, going on to those from Lushington, Spectral Shot, the Case of Toxic Tonic, and the Case of Maxwell Murder. If you want to find a bit more about me and my books, you can go to our website, bowsociety.com. All the books available on Amazon for paperback and Kindle at the moment.
So I write standalone psychological thrillers. The Second Wife has just come out about 2 weeks ago, and that's currently 99p or free in KU. And the other books, just whichever ones I can grab, that was an Amazon bestseller. The Visitors, they're all, I think they're $1.99, they might be $2.99 on Amazon. And these are just, they kind of look like that, typical psychological thriller covers. Yeah.
Marvellous. And then all that's left to say is thank you all so much for coming and joining us.
Oh, thank you very much for having us.
It's been great. Thank you.